What is going on, y'all? So we are kicking this off. I'm not going to stay on here long today. We'll give it a minute or two. See who wants to dial in late on this Tuesday, February 15th at 10:39 p.m. My guess is a lot of people are sleeping right now or getting ready for bed, as we're just not seeing a lot of people tuning in. What is going on, y'all? So for those that are slowly joining, because I know this is late, at least it's late for me. It's 10:40 at night. What's up, y'all? Hey, unrelated, I just watched my first bit of NASCAR racing in forever, since I was probably like a kid. So I am amped, and I got amped because of the NASCAR series on Netflix. I don't know if y'all have watched that. I watched that with Nolan, and it got me pumped up and ready for the Daytona 500 coming up this weekend. Hey, and this time, if y'all drop comments, I guess it only works directly on YouTube, but feel free to drop comments directly on there. I think I know how to pull them up on here. This episode's going to be short and sweet. Again, just testing out going live. I just recorded two episodes, one to preview the offense, another to preview the defense and the state of where things are heading into free agency. I should take that back. I recorded three episodes. I've also previewed special teams. But today, I wanted to take a second and talk through the coaching staff that is now in place as the Carolina Panthers coaching staff is rounded out. So give me a second and I'll share my screen and kind of talk through the latest here. We're going to try this. All right, y'all. So Panthers round out their 2024 coaching staff, and we've been waiting on this. To be honest, it's almost like we are now Seattle East, and then we've got Panthers coaches going up to Seattle. It's kind of this swap here. Now, a few of these have already happened or happened earlier in the week, but the staff itself has been constructed, and hey, we're ready to rock and roll. At least I hope we are. So, outside of Dan Morgan, Dave Canales, if you're just now coming out of Iraq, we have Will Harriger announced as the quarterback's coach. I did a very small, I won't call it a write up, small video on X talking through some folks that worked with University of Southern California, where he came from, with Caleb Williams. The thing that I liked about when they talked about him coming to USC last year was working. One, he worked with Trevor Lawrence, but he didn't just work with Trevor Lawrence. He worked with Trevor Lawrence during the Urban Meyer turmoil of crap. So he's been around a lot of dysfunction. He's been around some crappy teams, or a crappy team, I should say, in Jacksonville during that time span. So he worked there, then goes out and now works with Caleb Williams. And now he's coming back, and he's worked with Bryce Young before through the quarterback collective. So happy to see him here. Nathan, or Nate Carroll, who, yes, is the son of Pete Carroll, is now the pass game coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. Again, we talk about these Seattle guys coming over. Pat McPherson, tight ends coach. He has been, or was, the tight ends coach for Seattle for almost 13 years. And that was it. He was a tight ends coach. You talk about people, you see people in their career progression, even in your maybe personal life, that people always want to like climb the ladder or move to the next thing. He was cool, man. He's like, hey, I'm going to be a tight ends coach, and this is my job, and this is what I do really well. And he did. The thing that intrigues me about Pat is the potential for Noah Fant to come over. And I know people, if you haven't paired all this together, he is a free agent. I know the production isn't off the charts. And I know we have 4 tight ends on the roster already under contract, but I do feel like there's some things they're going to shake up with Hurst, with Ian Thomas. So I would look for those connections as we start thinking about guys that may have ties here. And originally, when we talk about free agents, you talked about guys from Seattle coming over, and you're like, oh, well, they'll have ties to Canales. But now it's more than just Canales, and you got a group of guys that have worked with parts of these guys that are, were on the Seattle staff and now here in Carolina. Keely Kekuawa, and I got to go back and look how to pronounce that. So assistant offensive line coach Darren, and I have not looked into him just yet. I haven't gotten into his. I started to get through some of these. Darren Bates is a special teams assistant. He was actually a special teams assistant, I believe, in Seattle. And then Scott Cooper, director of coaching development. I just followed him on X. I have no idea what this means. I don't know if this is all part of the restructure and what's happening. But yeah, we got highlights here. So I guess they kind of do it for us, which makes it easier. Harriger began his career on the defensive side of the ball, spent 10 seasons of coaching at the college level. In 2014, Harriger made the jump to the NFL, transitioning to the offense, spent 5 seasons with Seattle, 2 years with Canales as assistant quarterbacks coach, went on to spend 2 seasons with the Falcons, including running backs. 2020 season was with Trevor Lawrence, like I said, then joined the USC staff working with Caleb Williams, like I talked about. So I guess in between then, this past year, he was the offensive assistant quality control coach for the Cowboys. So that's good to pair all that together. So it was a gap or a year with working with Williams and then back to the NFL. Like I said, Carroll, son, Nate Carroll, son of Pete Carroll, joined his dad's staff in 2011, moved to the offensive side of the ball in 2013. Talked about him rising through the ranks, working alongside Canales. Yeah, like I said, McPherson, tight ends coach, has been doing it for a while. Been coaching in the NFL since 1996. Spent 1 year in 96 as quality defense control, with 49ers. Since then, he spent his time with just 2 teams. That's impressive, man. Denver Broncos from 98 to 2008 and Seattle from 10 to 23. You're like, yeah, his whole time with Seattle, like I said, he was the tight ends coach. That's it. Dude's like, hey, I like tight ends. This is what I do well, and this is how I want to coach. Kekewua, and again, I got to look up that enunciation, and I'll get it right, so I apologize. Bowling Green product who went on to coach in the college ranks before joining the NFL. He joined the Seahawks as an offensive assistant before moving to offensive line in 2021. Bates is an Auburn alumni and longtime linebacker in the NFL. He first signed with the Rams in 2013, played with the Falcons. Bates joined the Seahawks staff in 2023 as a part of the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship. Didn't really highlight what Cooper's role is, so we'll be curious to see what that looks like. In addition to the new faces, Canales has retained 13 assistants. There you go. The whole defensive staff is back. This is great. It's great for Canales. It's great for the Panthers organization because guess what? Now Canales can not sit back, but he can turn all of his attention to the offense. And the offense, we know, needs that attention. Part of having Ejiro Evero focus on the defense, already having a defense in place, already having a scheme in place, already having familiarity with the players and the entire staff, that's going to help. It's going to help us as we move through this process. And hey, we even get a little bit of a head start because we have a new head coach at the helm. We get to start 2 weeks earlier than all the other teams. Not that it's going to mean that much in the long run, but that's something to note. When you look at the staff, we know Ejiro Evero. It sounds like Dom Capers is hanging around. Good old Dom. Still going to be here. Jim Caldwell will also be an assistant. So I do like Jim. Jim's hanging. Todd Walsh, Burt Watts, Jonathan Cooley, Peter Hansen, Tim Lukaba, D'Angelo Hall's back. Mayor Chidori. Sorry, I don't have I have my glasses, but I keep taking them off. Bobby Maffei, Mike Kovakai and George Lee. So they're all back. And I remember last year when the staff was put together and I went through when I first started the podcast and was looking at all those names. And then in addition to this name, positions that have already been announced on the team, Brad Idzik, offensive coordinator, coming from Tampa Bay. Tracy Smith, special teams coordinator. Then we have Harold Goodwin, who's the assistant head coach, run game coordinator. Bernie Parmalee, running backs. Rob Moore, wide receivers. Joe Gilbert, offensive line. There's your staff, folks. We'd love to know what you think, and I'm going to hop back over here. This is really for myself because I was trying to I just realized hopefully that I may have just had that in a super small screen, so I apologize if that was not as big as thought it'd be. But anyways, yeah, so your staff is rounded out, folks, and we are going to move into free agency coming up very soon. Now, if you're looking at the calendar, and I'm going to try to pull this up live, see if we can do this. We'll take a look at the, oh man, this is what I get for trying to do this. There we go. So you can go out to the NFL operations website, get a look at important dates. We're going to quickly touch on these. I know I've talked to some folks about those before. Super Bowl is done. So we are now moving into the period where we will designate, likely, possibly, would not be surprised if this did not happen, a franchise tag on a player. So February 20th, less than a week away, beginning at 4 p.m., clubs, excuse me, may designate a franchise tag on a player. So in our case, is that going to be Brian Burns? Likely. Now, the thing about this, so you have until March 5th to designate it. Then you really have 3 months or so until you actually have to have the player sign the franchise tag. So there's a lot that can happen in between then. One is we are starting to hear is there going to be a tag and trade. That's a possibility. When you think about the implications to the salary cap for the Panthers, the downside of Burns signing this or potentially signing a franchise tag is the impact on the cap. You're talking 21, 22, $23 million against the 29-ish that we have available. And there's nothing you can do with that. Like if he were to sign and that's the path we go down, can't really do anything about that. But when we start talking about a contract, if you get him to sign a contract, you can, one, talk about signing bonus. You can talk about restructuring or pushing that further down the road in the contract, 4 or 5 years, whatever the contract ends up being. So, yeah, we've got a very short window. I would be surprised if we did not use the franchise tag on anyone because you have this short window. And I guess in between this, I should call out the NFL Combine. And hey, yes, I'm going to have mock drafts and all that jazz coming up here soon. I know I've done 2, but I've been doing a lot more, just picking through some of the guys that I think are going to be available. So you have that. And then really March 11th through 13th is kind of the kickstart to free agency, and players are able to talk to others, negotiations, new league year, all that's going to happen. The end of March will be the annual league meetings. That's usually when we start to hear like if there's going to be any changes to rules or like what's new. So you'll have that. Then April, move right into, like I said, April 1st, we'll be able to start our off-season workout program because we hired a new head coach. Clubs with returning head coaches start 2 weeks later. Go through really the draft at that point, start talking about who's draft eligibility in the actual draft itself. And then the other really important deadline for us in Panthers world is May 2nd, where we have, or by May 2nd, we have to determine if we're going to pick up the 5th-year option for J.C. Horn, which I've said I'm a fan of. I believe we should do it. I know fans can say why. And I'm like, it makes sense to me. I take the gamble on the $11 million for another year and hope that it works out. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. You're $11 million down the drain, which is not a lot of money, but for the upside that it could be, I say you go for it and you do it. And just my take there. Well, folks, I believe that is all I got for today. I'm looking through. Yeah, that's all I got, folks. So I appreciate all of y'all tuning in here, and y'all have a good one. We'll see y'all.